According to our Bible reading, Abraham's adventures didn't really begin until he was 75 years old. And when he reached 75, the most significant part of his life was still to come. In our reading, we hear how God blesses Abraham, yet God's grace is not the grace of an easy life in the ancient Middle Eastern equivalent of the whitewashed cottage we covered in clematis. It's the very opposite. It's the challenge to start a journey. It's the promise that Abraham's life will have significance and a meaning greater than he can imagine. I'm the chair of Chalton Good Neighbours, which is a church-initiated community organisation whose purpose is to help older people find friendship, support, but also challenge and sometimes adventure. One of our groups, the drama group, was a bit different. It was for all age groups, younger people in their 70s, middle-aged folk in their 80s, and one or two in their prime of life in their 90s. It started out as a sort of fun therapy, a way of engaging with new people. Later, the leader suggested that perhaps they could do a little sketch at a local community centre. Some were a bit reluctant, but most said okay. It was a triumph. And with the cheers of the crowd still ringing in their ears, the leader said, well, maybe we could film your next performance. And that was all right too. The film was showed at a Thursday morning coffee morning for about 100 people. And the people who saw the film said, well, that's good enough to put on in a theatre. And so it came to be put on at Manchester Corner House. And our actors and actresses were dressed up to the nines as they went for their film premiere and had special seats. And each of them felt that blessing of increased confidence and real pride. Joe was 75 when he began painting. It was another 5 years before he showed anybody any of his pictures. It was just after his third wife died following a long illness, and Joe had discovered he had cancer and had to have his right ear removed. A friend said he wished he could paint like Joe. Joe said, why don't you have a go? And his friend said, well, I will if you'll help me. And that's how it began, the art club. Joe ran it for 15 years. Oh, I should have mentioned, Joe was registered blind. One day I asked him how he found the courage and the strength to keep doing so much. And he said, when the war was over, he realized that God had given him his life for a purpose, and he should take every challenge and seize every opportunity and help others to do the same. And the story I shared with Manly Park folk this morning. Joyce was the same age as Abraham. When he started his journey from Haran, she'd retired as a teacher 15 years before and thought it was time for the younger ones to do their bit in the church. The trouble was, there weren't that many younger ones, and the ones that there were seemed to be incredibly busy. Anyway, one Sunday, someone had written in the prayer book a request to pray for a new youth leader. The church was blessed with 5 or 6 young people, but they had no one to work with them. And Joyce could see the need, so she prayed really hard and tried to think of who could take on this important role. Unfortunately, no one came forward, and in every service the same prayer was offered, and Joyce dutifully said, Amen. Anyway, after a month or so, Joyce mentioned to another lady in the congregation how sad it was that no one had noticed and responded to the prayer for a new youth leader. The woman looked at Joyce and said, well, that's not quite true, is it? You've noticed. And that made Joyce think. and she rehearsed every excuse she could think of in the world as to why she shouldn't respond to the prayer. But during the next week, she found herself starting to think about how she could run a group. She decided that since she didn't have a church key, she'd better run it in her own front room. And by the following Sunday, she realised she was going to be part of the answer to the prayer. It was then she thought it might be a good idea to tell her husband. When I went back to Nottingham to visit Joyce, she'd just passed on the youth leading to one of the group. She was now almost 91. She said it was hard to let go. The group had been the best thing that she'd ever done. And she wasn't the only one to think so. Someone else told me that among the other blessings the group had produced was 2 Methodist ministers and 3 local preachers. Now a confession time. Do any of you own a crimpling dress? If you're guilty, don't feel you have to own up to it. Once upon a time, crimpling was the unofficial marker of old age, wasn't it? Today, you rarely see crimpling, thank God. Older people often wear the same clothes as younger folk, and the message is older people are people too. People are able to do amazing and wonderful things. The danger is, as we get older, we put ourselves in mental crimpling. We think we've done our bit. Because of that, our life can lose meaning and purpose. Yet God may have a gracious blessing to give to you and me. The only thing is to receive those blessings. You need to be ready to take the risk of accepting whatever challenges and seizing whatever opportunities come your way. I promise you, God is not finished with you or with me yet. In fact, the most significant thing that you may do in your life and in the life of others may be just about to begin, as it was for Abraham.